You're probably wondering what that was all about. It's actually the stunning new artwork from Childish Gambino, who released a surprise album this past Sunday, or Saturday night, who knows. Which means it's time for a review. This is a weird one. I'm still trying to figure out what to make of it, I suppose. Childish Gambino is the alias for the artist Donald Glover. This is his fourth and supposedly final record that he'll be releasing under that name. Childish Gambino made a statement some time ago about how he was going to do one fourth and final album under the name of Childish Gambino. This is coming after the release of his previous record, Awaken My Love, which was a funk soul venture into a very different area of his artistic capabilities, which caught a lot of fans by surprise who were expecting more of his hip-hop and rap repertoire. Mr. Glover has always been a mysterious and artistic man, and that also shows with the release of this new album when he actually released it online on a website called Donald Glover Presents. Aired the album once through, once only, and it played as one single track. Then the album disappeared and it went away, and then reappeared a few days later on streaming platforms like Spotify. The album's name is 3/15/20, which is the date that he premiered the album initially on the website. The names of the tracks on this one are kind of a head scratcher because they appear to just be timestamps of when each song starts throughout the album, except for two tracks, which would be the second and third track. Those have names with letters in them, but all the other tracks are just numbers and timestamps for when they start in the entire album's runtime. That said, I'm just gonna cover this thing with what I think so far as the album was given to us at launch. So let's jump right into this thing. The song starts with the track 00.00. That's because it starts. It's the first track of the record. It's an intro track. You know, it's adequate, I guess. There's nothing super special here. It starts with this singular tone that slowly builds in depth, and there's a couple extra layers added in. Glover saying, "Hi, welcome to the album. Get pumped," even though it doesn't really pump me up at all. And that leads into the second track, Algorithm, which does actually pump me up for the album quite a bit. This song features some deep thumping bass that reminds me of throwing a bonfire party in the middle of the jungle. There's a lot of creative production on this thing, actually. There's a very engaging beat, and the vocal processing on this track reminds me of some of his earlier music, like something you'd hear off the track Heartbeat. And I actually really liked the transition from this song into the next song, as this sporadic beat, very crazy and random sounding, but it slowly settles down and kind of falls into its groove, and it finds a new groove which eventually clicks into the next track, which is called Time. And although it was a great transition, this song doesn't really do that much for me, but this is very much a new track, so I don't know why Gambino may be trying to portray this thing as one long track here. That said, I really like the stark difference between the tones and the consistency that he remains from the previous song production-wise. The song itself, though, kind of just feels like a mid-2000s throwback, kind of like a B-side off of a Seal record. Now, the idea is there with this song, but honestly, Glover only goes so far with it. There's some twinkly synths and some cascading string sounding effects, but honestly, all this isn't enough to really make me want to return to the track. The next song, 12:38, this one just sounds like a song that Glover rightfully cut from his previous record, Awaken My Love. This song was just flat out boring to me, really. It didn't change much at all throughout its entire 6-minute runtime, until maybe the last 30 seconds or so when the beat actually started to kick in more. And the 21 Savage feature on this thing was flat out lackluster. Now there is a nice abrupt transition from this track into the next one, 1910. This track has a much more interesting beat right off the bat. Additionally, it has a much catchier melody, the background synths and the descants are much better mixed in, and the percussion actually features a colorful mix of sounds. Hollow industrial claps, thumping bass, and a shuffling shaker really add the perfect amount of momentum needed in this arrangement. This track slows down at the end, kind of making space for something to happen, and it was effective. It made me lean in, and I like what happens. It's fine. It didn't blow me away, but kind of faded into some ambient shuffling noises, some moving around. I don't know if there's a voice in there. It's kind of hard to discern, which is cool in its own way. And then that clicks into the next track, 24:19, which has a beat that slows things down in an appropriate way. There's some nice vocals and guitar that create a very different texture to what we've been hearing on this album thus far. There's also some nice harp playing later on in this thing, which is nice to the ears. My ears enjoyed that. But I keep asking, does this track need to be 8 minutes long? Nope! This track then fades into some distant, distorted bass that actually sounds pretty cool, and then it starts to speed up with some disorienting and strange-sounding moans and groans from, I assume to be Glover. This then morphs into a twangy bass line that is soon accompanied by frantic vocals and distortion that spawn an unfocused cluster of ad-libs and sound effects. I'm not really sure what Glover was trying to accomplish on this track. It really just seems to act as a sort of transition piece into the track 3531, which is a happy, summery tune that's characterized by chimey guitars and mildly auto-tuned vocals. This is a nice track, but again, not a track that I ever see myself returning to. Even the trap-like breakdown that occurs later in the song doesn't really add much to the arrangement, in my opinion. 3928. Why go to the party? Why go to the party at all? The vocal hook on this track quickly becomes more interesting than it initially gives off, thanks to well-written vocal harmonies, and there's a pleasant-sounding piano backing up these vocals. Nonetheless, it seems like just yet another interlude track that actually leads into Feels Like Summer. With an added 20-second interlude, this is the only track on the record that was previously released as a single by Childish Gambino. And this was actually my least favorite single that Donald Glover put out over the last couple years. I much preferred Summertime Magic, and even This Is America. But I didn't think This Is America would be on this record. That definitely seemed like its own thing. But come on, Summertime Magic, that was a way better song. I might be in the minority on that take, but that said, they both seemed like decent fits for the album. I don't see why he shouldn't have put them both on there. But I wish he at least would have included Summertime Magic over Feels Like Summer. That said, this song is relaxing, and it features a nice keyboard hook, and ultimately it does feel like it belongs here. Getting close to the end here, boys and girls. That was disgusting, I'm sorry. 4748. This is a nicely placed homage to Glover's previous album, Awaken My Love, featuring similar tinny sound effects and instrumentals that sound quite familiar, as they could be found on Glover's previous Sunk Full venture. This track still didn't come across as particularly interesting to me though, until about halfway through, when the track picked up with cascading vocals, a smooth and lush sounding flute, and even an adorable sample from Glover's own son. Now, the last track, 5949, is what I think the best track on the entire record. And no, this is not just because it's the only track that Glover goes hard in, but it actually does the best job of encompassing all of the themes and sounds that Glover has been building on up to this point in the record, and even throughout his discography. This song should have come much earlier in the track list, in my opinion. With engaging flow and impressive production, Glover incorporates one hell of a beat, along with soul influences and impressive singing from Glover himself and his background vocalists. There's also a wonderful blend of electronic and acoustic instruments, with high-pitched dings to help fill in all the spaces. This song is diverse, it engages the ears, and it expertly shuffles through its various sonic influences. I really do appreciate what Glover is trying to do on this album. To me, it seems like he's trying to incorporate all of the different sounds that he's introduced to us throughout his discography. However, due to this, the record really feels drawn out and even bland at points. I hesitate to say that it's unfocused, because Glover clearly has a projected sound and a vision that he'd like to accomplish on this thing, but a lot of these tracks could be cut down by as much as half their length. Furthermore, it even feels a bit lopsided, with the many different influences coming into play at very specific points on the album, some never to be heard again. Honestly, it's a little messy, and maybe uninspired. This album attempting to cover the ground that it did is fine and all, but I can't help but think that someone with the talent of Mr. Glover could have accomplished this much more gracefully than what he did here. That's not to say there aren't certainly highlights, such as Algorithm, 1910, and the final track, 5949. And I will say that Donald Glover is a man of many talents and visions, so I am holding out a little bit to see if he does anything with this album in the future. Perhaps he's planning on renaming the songs at some point, having fans come up with some names for the songs, replacing the album art, adding to the album art. I'm really not sure what he has in mind here, or perhaps it really is just intended to be a one-track album that he's trying to emphasize that point by having all of these tracks be time-stamped. I hope that he introduces something that adds another dimension to this album, because it certainly needs it. This thing does not seem like a consecutive listen to me. Each track is clearly its own thing. There's a clear divide between each track where one track ends and the next begins. You can tell when the beat changes, when the mood changes, when the instruments switch up. It doesn't feel like a massively smooth composition. It feels like it's these ideas that he had that he just got creative with the production when stitching them together piece by piece. Overall, this is my least favorite album from Donald Glover. If it's true that this fourth album is Glover's final album under the name of Childish Gambino, then it's a lackluster send-off for a wildly successful alias to a multi-dimensional artist. 6 out of 10. Thermometer. It's going right there. Yep, that's where this is gonna be. I'd love to hear what you guys thought of this album. Have you listened to it yet? Are you gonna listen to it? What'd you think of it? Please let me know down in the comments. I want to know what you guys think. And if there's an album that you want me to check out and potentially review in the future, let me know that too. Make sure you like and subscribe if you want to see more content similar to this. I'm going to be making a lot of weird stuff soon, so make sure you stay tuned. It's going to be pretty weird. I mean, great. Go and eat some pudding. Actually, no, eat some peanut butter. It's healthier. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.